A Houston megachurch pastor was ordered to pay $2.45 million for transmitting genital herpes to a woman he met online. The story unfolds inside Houston's massive megachurch ecosystem. Ralph Douglas West II was an assistant pastor at the Church Without Walls, a prominent congregation boasting tens of thousands of members. The lawsuit centered on a lifelong pathogen, the herpes simplex virus. A diagnosis carries lasting physical symptoms and deep social stigma. Suing someone for transmitting a sexually transmitted disease belongs to a highly specialized legal field. Attorneys like Sean Murphy focus entirely on holding individuals accountable for hiding their infection status from a partner. This diagram outlines exactly how the law views STD transmission. Knowingly spreading a virus without disclosure is treated as a severe civil infraction. A plaintiff can sue for battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraudulent concealment. By classifying the act under these three specific charges, a private medical issue becomes a massive legal liability. It gives a jury the authority to award millions of dollars to punish the person who concealed their diagnosis. A massive jury verdict provides ultimate vindication for the victim. But in the civil justice system, a trial victory is merely the first fragile step before entering a grueling appellate gauntlet. Inside the Harris County Civil Courthouse, everyday citizens heard the plaintiff's story. This timeline illustrates her argument: a negative STD test, unprotected sex with the defendant, and an immediate viral outbreak days later. She backed this with emails where the pastor allegedly admitted contracting the virus from his son's mother, never denying he passed it on. For a lay jury, a perfectly timed outbreak and guilty-sounding emails are highly convincing. The circumstantial evidence painted a clear picture of someone who knew they were infected and chose to stay quiet. The jury returned a devastating verdict against the pastor. They awarded the plaintiff $1.45 million for the lifelong illness, plus another $1 million in punitive damages to punish his actions. Common sense and text messages can easily win the moral argument in front of 12 peers, but those exact same elements become highly vulnerable the moment they face strict judicial scrutiny. Fast forward to June of 2025. The defense appealed the multi-million-dollar judgment to the 14th District Appellate Court in Texas. The appellate judges ignored the emotional weight of the story. They looked strictly at the legal requirement known as the burden of proof, the exact amount of evidence required to legally hold someone responsible. They found a fatal flaw in the initial trial. The plaintiff had completely failed to provide the mandatory medical expert testimony required to prove exactly how and when she was infected. In civil court, circumstantial evidence like perfectly timed outbreaks and incriminating emails is legally insufficient. You cannot win a lawsuit over a lifelong virus just because the timeline makes sense. This scale graphic demonstrates the rigid medical threshold the court demands. A scientific expert must take the stand and definitively biologically link the transmission to the defendant. Without that specific scientific link weighing down the evidence side, the plaintiff's multi-million-dollar case collapses. In the appellate system, procedural and evidentiary thresholds ruthlessly override moral narratives and public outrage every single time. Because of that missing medical testimony, the appellate court completely reversed the decision. Pastor West's $2.45 million debt was wiped clean. Today, the two parties face very different realities. The plaintiff wants away with zero compensation. Meanwhile, the pastor remains an active minister, continuing to preach from the stage at his church. The case leaves behind a stark legal precedent. Knowingly spreading an STD exposes individuals to devastating civil liability and fraud charges. The threat of financial ruin is very real. Extracting those millions requires an absolute, unshakable standard of scientific proof. A convincing, emotionally resonant story will not survive the appeals process. In the court of public opinion, text messages and a coincidental timeline equal undeniable guilt. The court of law requires a much colder, stricter standard. When you sue someone over an invisible virus, the ultimate arbiter of truth isn't a sympathetic jury or an outraged public. It is forensic medical science.